Thanks, Dr. Seema. It is a time for a new vision of peace to we match the realities of today's conflict. Today, we reap the benefits of the peace movement across the globe. Not only are the instances of armed conflict fewer in our days, at any time and other points in history, but the conflicts also tend to be less latent. To respond to today's conflict, we not only need new instruments and tools, we need a new vision of peace. Our challenge is to reinvent peace for the next 100 years. So, the first question is in my mind. First slide. What is global peace? Please, first slide. What is global peace? First, in my mind, peace is an idea of planetary non-violence by which nations willingly cooperate, either voluntary or by virtue of a system of governance that prevents. It is an idea of freedom, peace, and happiness among and within our nations and our peoples. So you see in the first picture, for me, for us, for everyone, or for the planet. So global peace is not for only one, not for only two, or not for only a group, but it is a peace for the planet, whole world. And now I am going, what are the global peace leaders? Since the beginning of time, civilization, communities, and peoples have always looked up to know one person to be guided by. This is an absolutely natural process within the dynamics of social life. Those individuals, therefore, have been seen as leaders who clearly feature marked traits and particular attitudes and traits appear to be present in the majority of leaders of all times, periods, and all over the world. They can be basically considered as universal components of such figures and their crusades. So the Mahatma Gandhi is the greatest apostle of peace in the world as seen after Buddha and Christ. His notion of peace is violence, individualism, soul force, and forgiveness. At first glance, global peace initiative might be perceived as from methodologies that have wholly divergent from his ideas. Gandhian model of global peace is one of the global alternatives. Decisions taken by virtuous leaders had not been sanctioned by parliaments or assemblies. Gandhian focus on the unresolved problem of international relation. In the second picture, Mother Teresa, the great global peace leader. Second, this, please take first, yes. And we see here, we do not need guns and bombs to bring peace. We need love and compassion. So Mother Teresa was the great lady. He gained worldwide acknowledgement for her efforts on behalf of world peace. She received many humanitarian and Peace Awards for her services amongst the poor in India and later for her service throughout the world. Now my second point is, what kind of leadership does sustaining peace requires? So in my mind, leadership for sustaining peace means leadership teams should be prepared to assume responsibility to do no harm. The principles of doing no harm are the part of long-standing practice in the international humanitarian community, well before they become a standard for other international interventions. So, the pillars of peace, measuring factors that create peaceful societies. Next slide. According to the Institution for Economics and Peace, just released the latest report, Pillars of Peace. It provides a new conceptual framework for understanding and describing the factors that are associated with peace societies. The research is based on analysis of over 4,000 data sets, surveys, and indicates it is the first empirical framework that aims to measure positive peace. You see in the slide the peace component, the peace pillars. So there are 8 pillars according to the Institute of Economics and Peace. Number 1 is well-functioning government. Second, a sound business environment. Third, an equitable distribution of resources. Fourth, an acceptance of the right of others. Fifth, good relations with neighbors. Free flow of information, a high level of human capital, and last, a low level of corruption. Now the aspirations of peace. What are the aspirations of peace? Next slide. Aspirations for peace tend, next slide, to be deposited negatively as the absence of conflict. You see, what is the aspirations of peace? Number 1 is absence of conflict. In many societies, peace is experienced as the order, the follow the end of war, often called negative peace. Seen through this prism, peace is rarely studied independently or measured directly without the long shadow of the unequivocal companion. This is the conflict. It also leaves little space for peace to pursued as a nation meta policy. It is important to acknowledge that negative peace and the conflict resolution approaches associated with it. These are critical when violence is threatened the lives of hundreds and thousands of peoples. While negative peace is reversible, it can endure often with the help of an external third party, such as peacekeeping operation. However, if positive, self-sustainable, peace is the desired outcome, there is a need for a more nuanced understanding that taps into the human potential for peace, rather than the overstand potential for war that continues to inform the ways we conceive of peace and security. So, in this picture, we see without the opposite word, the positive word cannot succeed. So, both are running together, peace and conflict, positive and negative. So, my next point is referring sustainable peace. Next slide, please. The Twin United Nations, next slide, Security Council and General Assembly resolutions of April 2016 on sustaining peace epitomized the latter understanding, namely that peace building and sustaining peace are relevant slowly in contexts where conflicts is manifest or proximate. The resolutions are leading to the predominant belief that it you understand the pathology of war, destruction and injustice and analysis and address the root causes of conflict. Peace will ensure this despite empirical evidence pointing to the contrary. For researchers that study peace and for practitioners who believe that peace should be the starting point and the end goal, sustaining peace is an ongoing process and not a one-time intervention. It is also relevant to the society's negative peace you see in the picture and sustaining peace. As framed above, are not in contradictions. Employing various peace building and peacekeeping strategies to prevent conflicts is important. Alone, however, these strategies only achieve half the peace, meaning they only ensure the absence of destructive violence. Preventing conflict, particularly of driven by state-centric top-down interventions, should be complemented by the equally important task of identifying and strengthening the conditions that enable people to satisfy their basic needs, experience low level of violence, engage in mutually harmonious relationships, and pursue their legitimate everyday aspirations without coercion, but with justice and security. Sustaining peace should thus be motivated by the humility to learn from what still work well in societies under stress and to respect and however broken these societies many appear. They have capacities and not just needs. So, sustaining people should thus be motivated by the humility to learn from what still works well in the society. Under stress, to respect that however broken these societies may appear, they have capacities and not just need. The often used analogy is that peace is like a tree. It grows from the bottom up. However, for the bottom up peace building approach to be effective, it needs to tap into the strengthen the resilient capacities at the middle level. Local authorities, civil society, organizations, local business, councils, and the private sectors. So all the points you
living in this technological world has really made things a bit complicated. Again, I think so there's some sound glitch at the end of Dr. Hemlata Talesra. May I request her to please?
So next slide. Next slide.
It's done.
Next slide. Date unless change the slide. Slide change. Yeah. Date unleashed the positive energy potential that exists in people, enabling them to resolve conflict non-violently and to participate in core charting a path towards positive peace. It also entails rethinking the ways we analyze peace and conflict context. This means that we would not only assess the factors that drive and sustain violence, but also map the capacities that maintain and nurture peace, the threats and stitches that hold countries together despite internal vulnerabilities and external pressures, because marginalized social groups, including women and youth, experience peace and conflict differently. Specific measures need to taken to ensure that the unique leadership perspective and roles are captured in the analytical exercise. A central attribute of leadership for sustaining peace is the ability to understand the leverage polarities. A purity is not a problem that has a right on best solution, but is rather a dilemma that is ongoing, not easy solvable, and contains seemingly opposing ideas. We usually think of them as dichotomies, such as short-term or long-term change or stability, peace or conflict, and negative peace or positive peace. This tendency to view things in opposition to one another, impedance, and efforts to build a peaceful society, especially a complex context where challenges to peace cannot be easily defined as black or white. The attribute of leadership for sustaining peace ability to unpack the powerful assumptions that underpin the theory and practice of contemporary peace building, to understand why efforts for long-term peace fail. This is all the more important in a context where the nation state is under stress and popularization is on the rise, where the international norms we have taken for granted are being contested, and where emerging powers are creating new narratives and paradigm for how the world should be ordered and peace built. So, the environmental sustainability is an important factor to build the peace. And there was one question in the last but not least, leadership for sustaining peace means leadership teams should be prepared to assume responsibility to do no harm to the environment, to the nature. The principles of don't do harm are part of long-standing practice in the international humanitarian community, well before they become a standard for other international interventions. These principles include in understanding that efforts by outsiders to energies, especially engineers, specific short-term outcomes that may calm the revenge of violent conflict or produce a modicum of stability and security, many in the end not build durable peace. And now the role, what is the role of education? to prepare peace builders. Education plays a crucial role in molding a peaceful society. Education is a means through which social and cultural values are transmitted. Depending on the values passed on, education can be an avenue for sharing positive stereotypes and attitudes that explicitly or implicitly condone violence and conflict. Further, children can be taught the socio-emotional skills that help them to peacefully resolve conflict and to treasure all human life. While teaching children their human rights solidifies the ideas that everyone has the right to life, dignity, and health. Education 2030 Framework for Action of the Global Education First initiative as well as the role of governments and regional have not yet done so to make additional that quality education reaches all and install values of peace, justice, human institutions, leaders, and teaching staff. The National Policy of Education 2020 emphasis on the development of sacrifice, non-violence, truth, honesty, peace, and righteous conflict. You remove these slides. Dr. Shruti, the head of school education, Gyan Vihar University, Jaipur, she asked me a question and also request to clear the global challenges in characteristics of leader in teacher education due to pandemic time. Teacher educators play an important role in motivation and coordinating the education system. And during COVID-19 also, teacher educators and over the last few weeks, we are seeing the teacher educators' role have been unexpectedly and dramatically changed by the COVID-19 crisis. The unprecedented nature of this situation means there is no set direction for them to know. Teacher education leaders are like the actors in a play where the story, the script, and customers have all changed mid-performance and they are on stage improvising to adjust to their role. Very few teacher education leaders have through training and support for their role, and even fewer have been given clear guidelines on their expectations. The teacher education leaders can train their trainees for acting to ensure the safety and well-being of the families and minimizing the disruptions. They also arrange a short survey for school leaders, for the community, and also call the parents and students about the current situation, and also will make use from the side of school management, who will take necessary steps to overcome the current situations. They can also inform the school teachers and parents about available relief aids of the government and others, and motivate the trainees and school teachers to motivate their students and teachers for online learning classes, because online learning classes is important for us also, for teacher educators also. So we motivate our students also. Our teachers and maintain influence, and the students and the community leaders to prepare them for expectational challenges. We believe that and new education 2020 guidelines, the teacher educators clear roles and supports to school and community welfare, their trainees and school teachers and authority also. Inspiring, coordinating them for face the challenges with fuel enthusiastic. So, Shruti, I think it is clear. Any question? You are welcome.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am.